Clearly, with Kennedy factored into the race, according to this poll, Trump takes a hit. Your response?
Kimberly, I'm probably going to stop being booked on these segments because he's not going to get on the ballot. These polls are fun. But the only way he matters in the general election is if he's disciplined and careful and methodical and gets on the ballot, which qualifying for the ballot as an independent is difficult to do. I don't think Mr. Kennedy is methodical or disciplined. I don't think he'll get on the ballot. And so these polls won't really make a difference when we get to actual voting.
All right. So, Rich, get your opinion.
I agree. I agree with what Mark's saying. I mean, we're doing this, as an exercise right now, if he does. But you look at Georgia, it's a great example of a state. It's a battleground state where that could be a potential concern for the former president. But he would need some 90,000 valid signatures. They're going to check those signatures. The same goes for Cornel West. What he did when he gave up the Green Party is by going independent, he gave up two things he does not have: experience and infrastructure. So it's incredibly difficult for two-party candidates to get on a ballot if they're not libertarian or Greens.
Sorry to ruin the segment.
You're right about that. Okay, exactly. Destroyed it. There you go. How about this? I thought one of the biggest numbers, and we had it earlier in the program, that 14% of the people that voted for Joe Biden last time are like, we quit you, we're done. They don't want anything to do with him. I think that's a huge number and advantage tactically for Trump. Right, Mark?
Look, I think this is only the latest poll that should cause people, either Republicans who are running against Trump or Democrats who say Trump can't win, to reconsider. Trump's ahead.
Trump's ahead. Trump's ahead, Mark Halpern says. Mark Halpern is right. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. It's Friday. Get your questions in. It's a Q&A day. Laura will grab them, throw them in the chat. I'll answer them as best I can. Don't forget to like the video if you like the video, and of course, subscribe, whether you're watching Rumble, Locals, YouTube. The best place to follow us, of course, is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. So I was happy to join Kimberly yesterday with Mark. It's like ruining these segments because we're putting together a show about this actually. We're doing the RFK effect now because he chose to run as an independent. He is a Kennedy, right? But the fact of the matter is it's difficult for anyone who is a non-two-party candidate. If you're not going to run as a libertarian and you're not going to run as a Green Party candidate, it's very, very, very difficult for them to get on the ballot. All right. So that's why we have continued to really pull the generic someone else. We'll add Kennedy as time goes on. We'll add West as time goes on, of course. But it is extremely hard. And we're going to go state by state. Well, we're not going to do all 50 states. But next week we are going to. I was going to do it this week, but there was so much that happened with the speaker vote. I thought it would be resolved, or at least it would be a good chance that it would be resolved, but it's not. We got that going on now. We're going to keep you privy to that. Plus, we're going to have Mike Davis on to talk about the latest in lawfare against Donald Trump and the gag order, which I just think is insane. It's like we cross a Rubicon. Donald Trump is not only the leading Republican potential candidate for president. He's not the Republican front runner. Donald Trump is the front runner for the 47th president of the United States as it stands right now. So for this nutcase judge, and I'm sorry, to slap a gag order on this man, you have Jack Smith who can come out and basically argue whatever he wants to argue. Again, I'm going to get too much into this until Mike gets on, but he can't defend himself. That's not America, folks. I don't know what the hell that is, but it's not America. And then when you have, of course, these other polls coming out, just look so bad. Listen, what I'm going to take the opening for before Mike comes on is to talk about this. Polling Mirage, Laura said I can't say it or type it out. We all remember a couple of what? It's been months. It's been going on for months. Months, right? Months. Oh, that's such a garbage poll. Look at the garbage Emerson poll. Look at the fake Big Dana poll. This is a paid-for pollster. Look at this. Look at the garbage Harvard Harris poll. Mark Penn is garbage. Mark Penn is a staple in Democratic politics and has been for years. He's establishment. He's not crazy left wing. Harvard, garbage. You think these companies want to come out and say, coupled with you have that from an actual so-called professional pollster, even though he's being sued for tons of money because of things that are grossly unethical. You have all of that coupled with their fraudulent influencers who sadly too many people follow, even though they don't know what they're talking about, making accusations like, Mark Penn or myself or Spencer Kimball. They're taking money from like the Trump campaign to find these numbers or something. It's ludicrous. Fox News is as anti-Trump as it gets. Yeah, even compared to ABC, NBC, and the rest of them. And yet even Fox News had Donald Trump doing better with these voting groups that we have been hammering over and over and over. It's a mirage. No, it's not. Let's bring up, I got to laugh at Spencer. Dude, putting Mitt Romney in here was just icing on the cake. Even Joe Biden clobbers Mitt Romney. And I mean clobbers Mitt Romney. Icing on the cake. Listen, before I get into this, I tweeted out yesterday, and you guys should, I'm serious. You guys should read some of the stuff that's in this new bio for Mitt Romney. If for no other reason, then you can see what a true piece of this guy really is. All right. This guy asks for, if you're on the right, this guy asks for your vote. If you're in the middle, this guy asks for your vote. If you're a Democrat, this guy asks for your vote. He hates your guts. He hates every normal person who's not part of the ruling class oligarchy. He hates your guts, Mitt Romney. And yet he begged for your vote. And he said, do you remember this line, Laura? I'm not asking you to vote for me. I'm asking you to vote for your country. Do you remember that shit? That line of horse? What a friggin' fraud. In this bio, which is always like, this effort to ingratiate a politician, in this bio, there are excerpts about people, about other politicians, and they're absolutely disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Do you want me to shut up? Do you need me for a second? No. Okay. I'm just listening. You look absolutely stunning today. Listen, I think I may have Laura on the teeter of potentially not hiding behind a camera anymore. I pitched the idea that I need new photos. And wouldn't it be great if Laura was in some of the photos with me? I'm thinking, and listen, I don't know, is Glenn here today? Glenn knows it's a lot better than having me in the photo alone. All right? All right, so let's look this up. October. No, it's truth is truth. Listen, yeah, beauty comes from the inside, but then there is, of course, just external beauty, which is not subjective. I mean, not subjective. It's objective. Yeah. October 2023, national poll. Trump making inroads with young voters against Biden. Maintains majority support in the Republican primary. Listen, this was the point. If you rewind the poll we just did, the national poll we just did, if you go back and look at the episode in which we went over the poll, which I believe was episode 400, it got like 850,000 views. God love you all. You would see that the first thing that I actually brought up was not the RFK effect. The first thing I brought up was, oh my God, look at this with young voters. The 2020 vote, meaning, who did you vote for? Right? And I've been saying this, that Trump is ahead with 2020 voters by a point. It's about a 5-point shift since 2020. But it's the new voters, it's the people who don't vote in midterms, who are going to come out and vote in very, very high numbers. And Donald Trump has a much bigger lead with them, between 6 and 8%. It's a much smaller group, but that's what gave him like a +2, right? Boosted overall. And what immediately got me is that young voters told us they voted for Joe Biden about 58-30. Yet now, Donald Trump is, in our poll, he's a little over 40%. And in the Emerson poll, we see something else. By the way, the ABC poll, the so-called outlier, maybe not looking like that much of an outlier. Maybe a little bit exaggerated, sure, but not that much of an outlier. Who's looking like an outlier at this point is the Marist poll. which has Biden up by 3. Anyway, let's get rocking. Concerns for immigration increases 6 points in the past month, driven by Northeastern voters. Those are liberals. Watch out, Maine. Watch out, New Hampshire, maybe. The October Emerson College polling national survey of potential 2024 presidential election finds former President Donald Trump with 47%, Biden 45%. 8% of voters are undecided. Since last month, Biden has held his 45% of support, while Trump's support has increased by 2 percentage points. Voters were also asked about hypothetical matchups with Bernie Sanders and former President Trump, and Mitt Romney and President Biden. Trump leads Sanders 48-40, with 12% undecided, and Biden leads Romney 40-30%, with 29% undecided. And I have to say, I'm not picking on Ron DeSantis. I saw a DeSantis person who's always posting pro-DeSantis stuff on Twitter, in the thread on Twitter, saying, what a waste of money. So they didn't poll RFK, but they polled Mitt Romney and Bernie Sanders. And actually, there is a scenario in which Mitt Romney and Bernie Sanders have a better chance of getting on the ballot across the country than RFK. There is. That's why I started that clip before we came on the show. Romney could end up a no labels candidate. They could try. You think for a second they still don't want to remove Donald Trump from the ballot? You don't think? Look at what's going on in the House right now. You don't think they don't want to use some excuse to remove Donald Trump from the Republican ballot, as the Republican nominee, and remove him from the ballot? You haven't been paying attention. If that's the case, you have not been paying attention. You haven't seen Joe Biden over in Israel? They would need somebody if, God forbid, something happens to Joe Biden. Everybody talks about Gavin Newsom, but I'll tell you right now, Gavin Newsom does not play well in the Midwest. Democrats know that. He is not playing well in the Rust Belt. You're going to go back to Hillary Clinton? No, Trump is going to kill her. He's going to crush her. You know, in the political sense, not in the literal. There would be some people. You know, Bernie Sanders would have won the nomination, arguably both times, if Democrats didn't rig it against him. Who better than Bernie Sanders? You think that's not going to happen, especially with the Middle East stuff? We read Bernie Sanders' statement on air last week. I called it one of the most cowardly, equivocating statements I've ever read, but that is how you talk to the left. They're pissed at Joe Biden now. After over 2 years of him basically being all right, it's almost 3 now, basically being okay with Joe Biden. They're all right with him because he's done a bunch of stuff they wanted him to do. After all this time, not being pro-Hamas, which I can't wait to talk about, Mike, not being pro-Hamas has turned the left against Joe Biden. You see followers of Rashida Tlaib and AOC. We will not forget about this. So is it a waste of money? I don't think so. Here we have Trump in this head-to-head. And Laura, by the way, can you just put in the thing how long I have Mike for? I'm not even sure how long. I gotta winnow down some questions. I had too many of them. So here we have just the Donald Trump, Joe Biden. This is what I was talking to you about a couple episodes ago. At the end of the day, now that Cornel West has bailed from the Green Party, the third party, someone else, I would want to keep in there, because there's going to be a libertarian, and Green parties, they're going to try to field their own person. But we really probably should do a head-to-head. And we also need to start pushing people again like we did before 2022. Like, I understand you're undecided. But though you're undecided, if you had to choose, who would you choose? That's the only way we're going to get out of the low 40s at this point. We can keep doing it the way we always done. We should. I'm just saying that I think for added clarity, we need to do that. While the poll reflects voters under 30 breaking for Biden by significant margins in 2020. Now, 45% of voters under 30 are backing Trump for 24. And 43 support Biden. Folks, that's almost identical to us in our last poll, which people went nuts. Look at his 18 to 29. And I said, actually, it's and let me look real quick. In truth, it was specifically, I believe, 18 to 24s that were given Donald Trump. Yep. Well, no, it was both groups. Both groups. Yep. It's both groups. So there is no doubt that there is big movement with younger voters. And I said I would expect, because as Spencer points out here, they are the most undecided among all age groups at 12%. Even with progressive candidate Bernie Sanders on the ballot, the election is statistically similar. 45% support Sanders, 42% support Trump. The impact of Trump on younger voters is better seen in the Romney v. Biden ballot test, where Biden still leads Romney 50 to 24. That looks more like the 2020 vote. This is what I've been trying to explain to the bought and paid for pollsters. You accuse other people. You make gross, wild, inaccurate, offensive accusations about other pollsters. We are a crowd-funded poll. Spencer Kimball gets a friggin' grant. I imagine Mark Penn does at Harvard. Nobody is paying anybody for these polls except for you. You're the only one being paid by a candidate. And you're leveling these ridiculous, offensive, unprofessional smears. And my response this entire time has been generally the same. When you ask these people who they voted for in 2020, you will get very similar margins to 2020. Sampling errors for subgroups are higher, of course, as my audience is smart enough to remember. But when the voters are telling you, and I just told Mike Shepard this, our 2020 vote is like 58 Biden, 30-something Trump or so. So very, very, very close to what it actually was. But those same voters are telling you, I am changing my mind. I have changed my mind. Even with Hispanics. Same thing. 30-something% for Trump voted, 32%, something ballpark like that in 2020. Now it's at 40 to 44, 45 range. Fox News was 45. ABC showed Trump leading with Hispanics. And by the way, we do too because of the Biden collapse. I believe we do. It's not that he's, leading because of he leads by he leads because Joe Biden collapsed so significantly, but he's at 42% support. And Biden collapsed because these voters are done with him. In the 2024 Republican primary, Trump held his base of support since last month, 59%. No other candidate reaches double digits now at the national level. 8% for Haley, which if you look is actually slightly higher. They're rounding to 8%, but Haley is slightly higher now than DeSantis in the Emerson poll. Chris Christie, 4%, Mike Pence 3%, Ramaswamy 3%, 10% are undecided. He did IVR and online component again. It is a larger sample, so it's a little bit different than the criticism I had of him with the Midwestern states, which I would not personally have done like that. And that's why you're going to see Ramaswamy in such a the IVR is significant. So you're going to see Ramaswamy at like 3%. Online, Ramaswamy does better. He doesn't do as well on the phone. At least that's been our experience. All right. They removed Kennedy because he is running as an independent now. Kennedy's not going to be a factor in the Democratic primary. So moving forward, we need to do the same. 70% for Biden, 10% for Marianne Williamson, 20% undecided. Listen, this is an incumbent president in a nobody race. And you have him doing, with Kennedy now out of the picture, you only really have him doing marginally better than Donald Trump, who is not right now the sitting president. And he's got a very crowded field. It's a bad look for Joe Biden. 20% don't even know because they don't like either one of them. They'll end up backing Biden in the end, and Marianne Williamson will get crushed. But don't let that allow you to overlook the serious dissatisfaction with Biden within his own party. All right. They go into the handling of Israel, just a total failure. Immigration, that is a big deal. when you ask about people's feelings about immigration, who they're going to vote for. Threats to democracy now are being split. It used to be like this Democratic talking point. It's not anymore. Threats to democracy also mean the police state, lawfare, the rigging of elections. They're losing control of that narrative as well. Of those who say they hold Biden responsible for the economy, 58% said they are worse off financially than they were a year ago, with 23% saying they are better off. Of those who hold Trump responsible for the current economy, 39% reported being better off financially, while 27% were worse off. Listen, this goes to the overall narrative that I have been trying to explain to you. The bottom line is voters just think Donald Trump was a better president. That's what's going on here. Voters think Donald Trump was a better president. This is a Grover Cleveland kind of effect here. You don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Many of you, I'm sure, because we weren't alive for that. Grover Cleveland was an outsider. He was kind of this guy who, well, he was governor, and I mean, he was, of a large state in New York. But he ran for the governor promising to root out corruption. Even though he was a bourbon Democrat, he was running to root out Tammany kind of machine politics and corruption and the patronage system that was really corrupting our political system, not only in the state of New York, but it was starting to infest federal government. He ran on that, and then also sound economic policy, laissez-faire. You cannot, make a competitive advantage for guilds, but you also can't try to pretend that government's going to be a referee for the little guy. That's what a bourbon Democrat was. Hands off. Your job as an elected leader is to be a good steward of as clean of a government as you can be. The people are genius on their own, and they will deal with the rest of it. And that's really all government should be. Do no harm. He did a good job his first 4 years, but he made enemies. The guilds couldn't stand him. The left couldn't stand him. The right couldn't stand him. They wanted free silver. They wanted to get rich on the cheap. They wanted speculation, out of control. Anyway, bottom line is they boot him. They engineer his, most presidents serving 2 terms. They engineer him as a 1-term president. He gets booted. It's kind of a source of embarrassment, frankly, being that he was such a popular governor for a while and then president. And what do? They destroy they destroy everything. They destroy the economy. Most of it domestic, but certainly had, issues abroad they did not handle. 2.5, 3 years into it, they're begging for Grover to come back. That's where look, politics can change in a year. There's a long time. Things can change. We'll see what happens. But right now, there's no comparable example of what we're living through. Not in our lifetime, not in the modern era. And the only thing this is really akin to is Grover Cleveland. And the country is basically telling us, as pollsters, he did a better job and I want him back. All right. There are some of these numbers that I want to read again. Polling Mirage might. He's hemorrhaging white voters. 55-39. That's almost his identical margin in 2020. Because when you force white voters to answer, here's a secret, okay? When you force white voters to answer, folks, they answer. And that's what Spencer Kimball did here. They'll tell you, I'm undecided. Oh, I really don't know. Maybe I'll vote for someone else. What a load of crap. It's crap. Until you get closer to the election. Spencer here said, I'm not giving them a someone else. And when he didn't, Trump's white vote share goes up from the high 40s where he had last time to 55. Biden's 39. That's overall white with educated whites. Black and African American, you ready? Biden gets 65.6. And I swear to God, are you ready? This is just insane. he gets 18.9 Trump of the black vote. I'm going to stop you right there. It's going to stop. I got to show you this, because what are the odds of this happening if it's not real, if it's a mirage? Okay. What are the odds? The odds are they're nil, folks. They're freaking nil. Okay. Nil. Where are you? Black vote against, and you can see here, because we have someone else, you can see here the white vote also goes down, just the way it was with Spencer's prior poll when he asked someone else. This time he did not give them the option, right? By the way, 42% Hispanic. Black vote, I kid you not, in the crosstabs, the Emerson College poll, it's 18.9%. Go look at the CNBC poll. Polling ally, I would call him. They're not the same thing, but polling ally said himself, it's a mirage. He's hemorrhaging white voters. Coffee break. It's not a mirage. One could argue that Spencer, Kimball, and Emerson, others like Rasmussen and others, certainly did overstate Donald Trump's non-white vote in 2020. But in return, because of course, everyone say it with me, sampling errors for subgroups are higher, the Emerson poll also understated Donald Trump's white support. So it ended up, even though he had non-white support stronger for Trump, overall, the poll was Biden +5. It doesn't mean the poll was wrong. Sampling errors for subgroups are higher. Here he has no hemorrhaging of the white vote at all. And exactly what we have been seeing for months now when it comes to Trump's share of the non-white vote. Hispanic vote share. Trump 41.5, Biden 47.6. We have Trump at 42.3. And I'm not sure if they have Asian and other separated. We could have done that as well. We always ask, of course, but we had about 36% Asian. He has 31 for just Asian. You know what? That's a good question. Well, we don't have to do that. I can do that for locals later. Locals, I'll separate it later. But he has Trump in a majority with the other races that are outside of Asian. That is also the case. But with our polling, we have him at like 52. He has him exactly 52.3. I mean, what are the odds, folks? What are the odds? Not good. That it's like, a coincidence. Or everyone's getting the same statistical noise. Highly unlikely. Highly unlikely. It's much more likely that this is real. When we looked the other day at the non-white vote share, okay? This is something I just want to point out real quick before we move on. And we are going to move on real quick here. But let's just pop this up. Here's the non-white vote share trend. I mean, exactly. The Hispanic vote is exactly the Emerson poll. Exactly. 0.2 of a percentage point difference. With the black vote share, it's literally identical, 18.9. And unlike some of those others, it's right there. It's in front of you. We did not overstate his share of the non-white vote in either 16 or 20. So this is real. It is not a polling mirage. And it's probably why they want to throw the guy in jail. It's not probably. It is why they want to throw the guy in jail. They cannot beat this guy at the ballot box. They can't. I got to, with what Mark Halpern said last night on the segment that I was in with him, this is something that it's just the latest in a wake-up call, a long list of wake-up calls showing that he's ahead. This is something that we have never seen before. In 16, We did see at the end of the race, Trump start to close the gap a little bit and surge a little bit. We saw something like that in 20, but nothing even close to closing it. Biden was way ahead and it ended up really close. Obviously in 16, he was surging at the end, but he was still down and then he won. Here we just have him winning, outright winning. It's a brave new world. It's totally different. All right. I'm not going to play this clip. I'm just going to bring my gun. I don't want to play the clip, frankly. Yeah, I sometimes wish I went to law school. Robert Burns is always like, don't waste your money. But I'll tell you what, I wish I did. Mike, thanks for coming on as always. I really appreciate you making the time to come on Inside the Numbers today.
Thank you for having me.
Man, I was just saying, I really do sometimes wish I went to law school so I could, have more knowledge about this stuff. But just to me, surface level, I don't know how you gag. Not only it's not just that he's the leading nominee for the Republican or the leading candidate for the Republican nomination or to one of the party's nomination. As we just went over in the first segment of the show, this man is ahead. This is a man who is the favorite at this point, a slight favorite, but a favorite to be the next president of the United States. He's leading. And this, I just don't understand how, even whether it's narrow or whether it's broad, how they could do this in just First Amendment alone, Mike. I don't know. Illuminate me.
I would say, first of all, I'm glad you didn't go to law school. Lawyers are terrible people. There are too many of us. And so it's a good thing that you're doing something that's actually productive in life. And number two, I would say that with this lawfare and election interference against President Trump, it has done exactly what we've predicted it would do since the Mar-a-Lago raid more than 14 months ago, and that is to rally American support around President Trump. A lot of people may not necessarily like Trump's style, but they certainly don't like the idea of these Democrat prosecutors and these Democrat judges and these Democrat juries and these Democrat hellholes like New York, D.C., and Atlanta picking the next president of the United States instead of the American people. I think the American people, real Americans in real America, like back in Iowa, where I'm from, resent these coastal elite Democrats who think that they get to pick the president of the United States.
Yeah, and my wife, she was just getting her hair done like last week or a couple of days ago. It's Friday. No, it was earlier this week. And the days are blending. Basically, this is a woman, she was like basically telling my wife, I never liked his attitude. I never liked how he talked. I don't like how he's got to brag. Like he can just win. Just don't throw it in your face kind of thing. She never liked that about him, but she has no choice this time, she said, but to vote for him because number one, like we look going over in the Emerson poll, this is just the last poll to confirm what this woman is saying. She just thinks he was a better president and they have lost their minds. You don't get to tell me who I can and who I cannot vote for. So you failed. And this is what she said. So you failed at your job. So you're going to prosecute the guy who wants to come back and do the job he was doing before you kicked him out. It's just insane. To a normal person, it's insane, Mike. And legally, how does she, the order was not released when it first came down. I don't know if anyone's had time to dig more into this, but was it more narrow in scope here, this gag order, or was it broad? The lawyers are gagged too, are they not?
Yeah, this is extremely broad, overly broad and vague. It's illegal. It's unconstitutional. It's obnoxious. It's un-American, but it's what you would expect from this deranged Biden special counsel, Jack Smith, and this obnoxiously partisan DC Obama Judge Tanya Chutkan. This is really bad what they've done here. They cited the DC local criminal rules to impose this gag order on a criminal defendant. The DC local rules protect the criminal defendants, the accused, right to a fair trial, not the government's. The First Amendment protects Americans, including criminal defendants, right to free speech, not the government. The Sixth Amendment protects the criminal defendant's right to a fair trial, not the government. The government doesn't have a constitutional right to a fair trial. They have turned this gag order, which is supposed to protect criminal defendants to make sure that they get fair trials, they've turned it from a shield that protects criminal defendants into a sword that the left is using to go after disfavored criminal defendants. And the DC Circuit must reverse this. It's Obama stacked, this DC Circuit. They're Trump deranged, but this is so much bigger than President Trump. If you can gag, if you can silence criminal defendants, we are in a very dangerous place in America. If anyone in America needs the right to speak out about the judge, about the prosecutor, and about the process, it is a criminal defendant.
And they did the same thing when it comes to the principle of a speedy trial. That's for the defendant. That's not for the prosecutor to rush to get a conviction before an election, right? I mean, yeah. I was always under the impression it's for the defendant.
Yeah, that's the problem. The Constitution is a shield that protects us from the government. It is not a sword that the government uses to come after us. And the fact that Democrats, these leftists, like this Obama judge Tanya Shutkin, have turned the Constitution from a shield into a sword, we are in a very dangerous place in America. And the DC Circuit needs to vacate this order, right? I'm not sure they're going to do it because I think that they're too partisan. I think that they're too Obama stacked. And so the Supreme Court that has discretionary review, they don't have to take these cases. They need to put on their big boy pants here. This is so much bigger than Donald Trump. They need to vacate this order if the Supreme Court and the federal judiciary wants to keep its legitimacy.
Yeah, I assume you know Saul Weisenberg, right? I mean, he's been on, he goes on Laura Ingraham's show. He's not a bomb thrower. And he said this can't be that broad. I hope it wasn't this broad. And of course it was. But at the time, basically said that this has to be more than Donald Trump. This will undo so much. This will hurt so many more people beyond Donald Trump if it's that broad. So if they don't do it, explain to me how I guess it works. If DC doesn't, then the Trump legal team gets to expedite it to the Supreme Court. Is that how this works, or that's their discretion? They get, like you said.
The Trump legal team absolutely should file a papers with the Supreme Court to get this clearly illegal, clearly unconstitutional, clearly un-American gag order on a criminal defendant by Biden special counsel Jack Smith, deranged special counsel Jack Smith, and obnoxiously pardoned DC Obama judge Tanya Shutkin. Because here's the problem. This applies to Trump. How the system works, if Trump is obstructing justice by intimidating witnesses or intimidating the judge or intimidating the prosecutor, there are criminal statutes on the books that deal with that. Charge him with obstruction of justice.
Right.
They know that what Trump is saying and doing is not illegal. They know it does not reach that level. And they know that there are two impeachments, the Democrats' two absurd impeachments, and their four criminal indictments for non-crimes, and then trying to bankrupt President Trump, bankrupt his family business in New York with this civil fraud lawsuit for non-fraud. They know that this is not working. They know that this is backfiring on them politically. These Democrats know this is helping to put President Trump back in the White House. And so this is their Hail Mary, to put a gag order on a criminal defendant, which is what you would do in third world Marxist hellholes, which is New York, DC, and Atlanta now. And it's a sword of Damocles. If Trump says something that Jack Smith or Tanya Shutkin don't like, they're going to hold him in contempt and put him in jail with his Secret Service agents. And more troubling is that this applies somehow to President Trump's surrogates. And so what the hell does that mean? His campaign can't criticize Jack Smith. I run the Article 3 project. I've done more than 1,500 media hits since the Mar-a-Lago raid 14 months ago, supporting and defending Trump. Does that mean that I can't criticize Jack Smith? I can't call him deranged. I can't criticize Tanya Shutkin. I can't say that she's obnoxiously partisan. Good luck to that. Put me in jail, because there's no way in hell they're going to silence me.
And on the flip side of that, he can go out and give highly prejudicial press conferences. He can leak to CNN all he wants. And it's not like this guy has some, a reputation of being, above reproach or, high character. That's the worst of it. So you're buttoning up Trump, and you're letting somebody who's like on par with Andrew Weissman go play the dirty game in the court of public opinion. And that to me is just, it's crazy. And like you said, it'll go beyond Trump. And before I move on, because I've been watching your Twitter feed and I wanted to ask you about Israel and stuff, but before I go on, what do you think about the other motion that they, the other argument, period, that really this needs to be heard, or the Supreme Court or higher court needs to deal with this as far as presidential immunity, and of course privilege is another question. But do you how strong do you think is that argument?
It's a very strong argument. Presidents have presidential immunity, just like judges have immunity, just like members of Congress have immunity through the speech or debate clause. You cannot criminally charge a president of the United States for acting within his official capacity. And a president telling his vice president to do something, I don't know what else could be in his official duties, right? And you have the president trying to enforce the Electoral Count Act of 1887. That's clearly within his official duties, right? And if it's not within his official duties, which is covered by presidential immunity, then what he did is protected by the First Amendment, because it is not illegal to object to presidential elections in America. It is specifically allowed by the Electoral Count Act of 1887. It is not illegal to twist arms politically in America. That is specifically allowed by the First Amendment, right? And it's only illegal to object to elections in third world Marxist hellholes, like New York, DC, and Atlanta. Apparently, if it were illegal to object to a presidential election, Democrats would be in prison for objecting to Republican wins in 1968, 2000, 2004, and 2016.
Yeah, they're the only ones to do it in the modern era. And we went back and looked when this first happened. I guess, and somebody had brought this up in the chat. I don't know that much about it, but speaking of third world hellholes, you think judges are afraid? You think some of these judges, even if they're inclined to do the right thing, they're afraid? There was apparently a circuit judge in Maryland. It was last night, right? It was last night. Yeah, gunned down outside his home in Maryland. I mean, this is.
Yeah, he was killed out in Hagerstown, Maryland. So it's
this.
Awfully, yeah, I mean, these judges have lifetime tenure. They have pay protection, but some of them are just weak, and others are legitimately afraid. Remember what Democrats did to the Supreme Court justices, still doing to the Supreme Court justices, where they organized illegal obstruction of justice campaigns, obstruction and intimidation campaigns outside of the 6 conservative Supreme Court justices' homes. That is clearly illegal. That's clearly obstruction of justice. You do not have a First Amendment right to protest outside someone else's home. You can't target them in their home. And that certainly applies to a federal judge while they're deciding a current case. That is obstruction of justice. The due process rights of the parties before that judge trump your First Amendment right to illegally obstruct justice by harassing them outside of their homes. And remember, the Biden White House and the Biden Justice Department wrongly said that these protesters had a First Amendment right to be there, even after the 1 a.m. assassination attempt against Justice Kavanaugh, his wife, Ashley, and their 2 teenage daughters.
And you think they would have, the White House, that's the message that would have come out from the White House if these were Trump supporters, trying to intimidate Supreme Court justices. Look at J6. This is a great way to segment into Israel and what's going on there, because I've been watching your Twitter feed. But, if you're sympathetic to Hamas, apparently you can seize the Capitol and interrupt congressional proceedings all you want, and nobody has anything to say about it. When that happens, Mike, that's their First Amendment right to assemble, right? So when the right does it and Trump supporters do it, it's sedition, it's obstruction, it's trespassing, and everything else they slapped on it. And that's the problem with these judges like Upchuckin, which is what I call her. The academia is cranking these people out. And when these attacks we're seeing on Israel, they're really attacks, right? I mean, many of them were just murders. I mean, of non-combatants that are Israeli. These news outlets are pretending like all of these anti-democratic ideas and all of these anti-Semitic ideas are new or something, or they're on the rise. All of these networks say, Mike, they were on the rise 20 years ago when I was in college. They're not on the rise anymore. They're prevalent ideas. They're predominant ideas in the Democratic Party. And the last time you were on, you said, look, this is not your grandfather's Democratic Party. They charge people, they persecute people. It is not the same thing. I'm looking at your Twitter feed and I see you hammering at it. You see it. I mean, you get it. This is all kind of cut from the same cloth, isn't it? I mean, these are not normal ideas that I think most average Americans hold, and yet we don't address that this is something that is, deep-seated beliefs in one party and one of the major parties in this country. We have to address this.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would say let's just imagine that the Article 3 project organized protest outside of the home of DC Obama Judge Tanya Chutkan. Do you think I would be sitting here right now talking to you in the Biden White House and the Biden Justice Department saying Mike Davis had the First Amendment right to do that? Or do you think I'd be in the DC gulag? I think I'd probably be in the DC gulag. So that's that point about the Biden Justice Department politicizing and weaponizing the Justice Department to go after Trump, Trump's top aides, Trump supporters, Christians praying outside of abortion clinics, parents outraged by gender chaos and the resulting rape in high school bathrooms, versus Trump, the Biden Justice Department going after all them while giving BLM and Antifa and now Hamas terrorist supporters amnesty to do whatever the hell they're going to do to terrorize America. And like you said, remember what we're dealing with here. This is not our parents' or grandparents' Democrat Party. These are not liberals who love America and just disagree with conservatives on the best way to get there. These are leftists. These are Marxist. They do not believe in free speech. They believe in censorship. They do not believe in equality. They believe in equity. They do not believe in due process. They believe in weaponized justice and Me Too justice. And we see this segment of the Democrat Party that's getting larger and larger, that it is these third world Marxist trash supporters and the Democrat Party who support Hamas terrorists, cheer on the kidnapping, rape, torture, and murder of Israeli women, children, babies, the elderly, the disabled. We see this same third world trash mindset among BLM and America. They're cut from the same cloth. These are terrorists. BLM it's a terrorist organization. It is a political organization that advocates for violence, mostly peaceful protests. Hamas is a terrorist organization, and any American who aids and abets Hamas, including the squad in Congress, by aiding and abetting them, by protecting them in Congress, why the hell are they getting away with this? How is aiding and abetting terrorism not terrorism? How the hell are they still in Congress? House Republicans should throw these terrorist pigs out of Congress.
I remember when Rashida Tlaib had brought all these advocates from CARE. She had Linda Sarsour there. She had Janine Deneen, or she's known by 3-4 different names. These were radicals who praise Hamas on a daily basis on social media. They were all huddled in her office trying to save Ilhan Omar from being censured for anti-Semitic language. Pelosi caved to it. Richard Engel in New York had a problem. That was one of the top Pelosi's top lieutenants. He's gone. He gets primaried and removed, Mike. So this is what I'm talking about. It's we always discuss these primaries on the right, and for years this has been going on in the Democratic Party with increasingly radical people replacing what you could even call a moderate Democrat anymore. And now we're left with this. And I'm on your Twitter, you did this too. I tried explaining this to people the other day. Let's just follow the fact pattern. You're a lawyer. How are we not responsible for funding Iran, who then in turn funded and sponsored this act of terror against Israel? How are we not responsible if when Biden got in, he removed, he didn't, officially remove the sanctions right away that the Trump administration had in place. He didn't officially remove the waivers, but he just refused to enforce them. Right first with China. Yeah, just buy the oil, import the oil. Trump had them as part of Net Zero, that program to basically bankrupt Iran. You can't sponsor terrorism if you don't have any money, Mike, right? And he had them down. Their oil exports were at an all-time low. He was bankrupting Tehran. When Biden got in, immediately he just told people, I'm not even going, we're not going to issue the waivers, the SREs right away, but we're not going to enforce these sanctions. So Reuters reported it. Al Jazeera reported it. And now we're pretending that, I get the hostage money, but that's like peanuts compared to what Biden has allowed Tehran to take in since they took over and undid everything in the name of not being Donald Trump. So now they had this money, and all the intel says that this attack took roughly almost about 2 years to plan, 2 years to really put in place. That's right around the time he stopped enforcing these sanctions, Mike. So it's like they start getting all of this money in, this infuse of billions in oil money. And then this, over a course of 18, 20 months, carries out, and eventually it plays out into what we're seeing right now and what we saw last week. How does that not make us responsible for funding an attack against our strongest ally in the region? This doesn't add up. We did it. We helped do it. Sadly, the Biden regime did it. America, the people didn't do it, but they did. I just don't understand how you can conclude anything else.
Yeah, I mean, this started with Obama, who's probably the most anti-Israel president in our history, who coddled Iran, who funded Iran, who funded Iran terrorism. And then we had 4 years of peace and prosperity with the most pro-Israel president in our American history, President Trump. And now we're back to the Obama-Biden disastrous policies of giving billions of dollars to Iran, a terrorist state, and then Iran funds Hezbollah in the north and Hamas in the south, and then they fund terrorism against Israel. It's that simple. This money, this so-called humanitarian assistance, is not going to medicine and food. It's going to terrorism. Do you think that Hamas and Hezbollah, they cut off babies' heads, they rape, torture, murder women, children, babies, the elderly, the disabled. They cut off babies' heads. They use their own kids, their own babies for human shields. Do you think that these terrorists have any regard for human life? Hell no. And Biden is funding this. He has blood on his hands. And now he's trying to give $100 million more to Hamas for humanitarian assistance right now. We still have American hostages. We have Israeli hostages. They just killed 1,300 plus Israelis and like 31 Americans. And we're going to fund Hamas right now because supposedly they're going to give this money to the Gazans for food and medicine. They're going to use it for terrorism.
That's why I got to ask you too about your opinion on what's going on with the vote for House Speaker. Normally with me, I don't really care if government operates or doesn't. Do less is more. Less is more with the federal government. But here we actually do have serious situations going on, and the House isn't conducting business. I don't like, the military guy in me doesn't like action without an action plan. But I get where Gates was coming from. The party's not acting, it's not acting in the interest of its voters. It wasn't. And it wasn't really representing its voters. Was it doing better than it usually does? Sure. But they still aren't feeling represented, and they're not doing what the voters want them to do. So I understand that side of the argument. But now here we are. And I'm not sure, because we've been on the show, I'm not sure how it's going with Jordan trying to corral this other 20 back. But I'll tell you, two aren't budging. I mean, they're just, they have no reason to. I think this is an excuse for some of them to not do what they promise voters they'll do. They'll like to make an excuse and scapegoat Matt for it. But I think they just would, their real problem is single subject spending bills. They don't like the inability to hide behind a failed process when they break promises to their voters. But here we are, and things have got to get done. Otherwise, the Biden administration is just going to run amok. Nobody's conducting oversight over what they intend to do. It's water, the water supply. And then we find out that's why you have a short round that hits a hospital, right? Laura did a story on concrete that never showed up. And we gave them money for concrete to build, public health facilities. It ended up being used for terror tunnels. So somebody has to be, we need eyes on this, Mike, is what I'm saying. So what's your take on this speaker battle right now? They got to get in line. They got to get this done.
You know what? The second we have a Speaker of the House, no matter who it is, we're going to have tens of billions of dollars going to Ukraine. And so I kind of like that we don't have a speaker right now, because guess what? Israel doesn't need the money. They just need President Biden to get the hell out of their way, right? They don't they don't need money from the United States. They don't. Ukraine needs money from the United States. But guess what? Why is Ukraine America's responsibility? We don't have a treaty with Ukraine. It's not in our strategic interest. It is in Europe's strategic interest. And it is time for Europe to step up and support Ukraine, because we should not be funding a blank check over in Ukraine for this corrupt country, Ukraine, fighting a war with another corrupt country, Russia. Putin's a monster, but guess what? Ukraine is not our problem. Ukraine is Europe's problem.
That's what people say, accuse me. They're like, you're anti-war with everything else except for when it comes to Israel. Israel doesn't need our boots on the ground. Israel never asks for our boots on the ground. They just ask for our support. They've been handling this themselves for decades when it comes to the actual fighting. And to me, I respect that. Plus, their enemy is actually our enemy. There are no good guys in Eastern Europe, Mike. There are no good guys. You cannot make this moral argument in support of Ukraine. They're a disgustingly corrupt nation. Zelensky, look, he's going after the Eastern Orthodox Church now, by the way. People want to read that in Reuters. That was out yesterday. That's not a democracy. That's not a free society. They don't share those values the way Israel does share our values. So I mean, they're just not the same situation. And there's no risk of us getting into a conflict. So, but this can't go on forever. I mean, I just turned 42. I'm watching this happening, and I'm thinking back to when there wasn't an Iron Dome. And I remember that. And I remember almost daily, certainly weekly, Yasser Arafat blowing smoke up Bill Clinton's, you know what? They were never going to agree to a two-state solution. President Trump was smart enough to know that, so he isolated them with the Abraham Accords. And none of this would have happened under a President Trump. What's the path forward here? I mean, I don't know how you half fight Hamas, Mike. They have to be eradicated. I'm sorry. There's just no other solution. They're never going to accept Israel being there. This is just never going to happen. I'm old enough to remember this now.
Remember that Gaza overwhelmingly elected Hamas, a terrorist government, right? So we're not dealing with rational people here in Gaza, right? So what Israel needs to do is they need to level this Gaza terrorist government, and President Biden needs to get the hell out of Israel's way. And what should be a 6-day war will turn into a 6-year war if Biden and the military-industrial complex get involved. Israel does not need America's help. Just get the hell out of the way.
Yeah, and they just need to learn how to shoot straight, he said. What an outrageous comment. Like the time he told people, you don't need an AR-15, just go shoot off shotgun rounds in a residential area. I mean, it's not even funny, Mike. It's not even funny, the stuff that comes out of this man's mouth. Well, tell people where to follow you and keep up with you, what you're doing.
I appreciate that. It's article3project.org, article number 3project.org. You can donate there at Article 3 Project on Getter, Twitter, Truth, at article number 3 Project. And my personal is at MRDDMIA, MRDDMIA, my initials in Des Moines, Iowa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for making the time. You're doing God's work, brother. Keep it up. Talk to you soon. Mike Davis, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mike, for coming on. I don't care if they have a speaker because money's going to Ukraine. That's true. That's one thing that I want the oversight, but it's like, is it worth it? And do Republicans have a record? Let's just think about this for a second. Do Republicans have a record that suggests to us that if they get back to work, because there is something on Jim Jordan I want to play, but if they get back to work, even under a Speaker Jordan, is the good they're going to do outweigh the bad they're going to do, right? Because there is going to be bad. Republicans don't have the numbers as far as a majority to just stop Democrats from putting in their grab bag. But also, it's more than that. They don't have the numbers within their own ranks. I'm going to say this yesterday. I'm going to say this, Laura. I'm going to share this with everybody. Literally yesterday, I had people call me, multiple people, and they knew that I was, in fact, thinking about running for governor in North Carolina. I know some of you people may not know that, but I was thinking about doing it. And then Mark Robinson ran, and I think he'll do a fantastic job as lieutenant governor. And I think he's got a great opportunity to further expand a majority. So that's it. But I had people call me yesterday and ask me to run against Greg Murphy. I kid you not. I like what I do, but this is a major problem. Republicans don't have representation in Congress. And Greg Murphy, who's in a Trump plus 32 district, goes out on Twitter and talks publicly about how he's going to vote for Jim Jordan. I can show you text messages that show a very different Greg Murphy, who is pretty cool and pretty okay with the concept of going with Democrats and mingling with Democrats to elect a speaker that, can go back and give them everything K Street told them they wanted. There is no D plus 32 district that I could find that is represented by a congressman or woman who abandons or betrays their voters. I dare you. Here's the People's Pundit Challenge. Go find me a D plus 30 even. Biden plus 30 district that is represented by a congressman or woman who is willing to make a deal with Republicans. They don't exist. I've said this a million times. I'll say it again. Republicans are 1/3 cowardly, 1/3 stupid, and 1/3 corrupt. You put those ingredients in an oven and you bake yourself a Republican lawmaker. That is not the case on the Democratic side. Never has been. They're willing to take a short-term defeat if it means they advance the goal line in their favor. They move the front. They push the front closer to enemy territory, and they advance. They take ground on the battlefield. Obamacare. They had one of the biggest majorities they had in the modern era after Barack Obama was elected. They were willing to take that loss. They were willing to lose Congress for as long as necessary to move the progressive agenda forward. And by the way, to make sure that that advancement is permanent, permanently shifts the dichotomy, permanently shifts where the spectrum is on the American political spectrum, ideological spectrum. They're advancing, constantly advancing. You'll never get that with Republicans with these people. As long as people like Greg Murphy are willing to say, thank you, Mr. Trump, for your endorsement. Thank you for saving me from this crazy Green Beret who has an assault charge. That's what happened to him last time. Everyone thought he was actually could be in trouble. But that candidate did not conduct himself the way you need to conduct yourself as a candidate, even though when he had background issues, I think, and so did many people in the district, he sufficiently addressed them. But then he continued to just do things that reinforce people's concerns over that background. At the end of the day, Donald Trump endorsed Greg Murphy and he crushed him. He got like 15 or 16% of the vote against Greg Murphy. He got 70. And there were some other candidates in there. But there were challenges in the past where Murphy was almost defeated. Joan got what, 40% against Greg Murphy? Now, she's a rhino herself. But she was pretending to be otherwise. So it shows you the appetite. Celeste, maybe you should think about running again. What do you think, Celeste? What do you think? Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it. Because I'll tell you what's going to happen. You're going to get a President Trump in 2024 taking the oath in 2025. And we're going to have Reagan, Trump won, and all over again. Crookedly, cowardly, scared, stupid, moronic Republicans stabbing their own voters in the back any chance they get, their own president in the back any chance they get. I'm telling you, Kay Granger has got to go. John O'Shea has got to beat her. Joe Kent has got to defeat Perez. Otherwise, it's not going to advance the agenda. I'm just telling you right now. Could he have an executive fiat presidency and just throw these bombs all over the place? Yeah, but he is currently running 16 points ahead of Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania. I'm sure Dave is a very nice guy. I hear very good things about him. I really do. You couldn't find a working class guy from Northampton or girl or woman to run for Senate in Pennsylvania. We need someone else to go in and stab J.D. Vance in the back. That's what the Republican Party really needs. I'm tired of these vote for the R's no matter what. No, especially in the House. Don't. A Democrat can easily be defeated after one term if it means taking out a rhino in exchange. What's the difference? What's the difference? I ask you, what's the difference? What is the difference between Don Bacon and Hakeem Jeffries? Almost nothing if you go and look up the CPAC voting records. You can go look at the Texas scorecard for Kay Granger right now. There is almost no different from an average Democrat. People who track this, Heritage, go look it up. All right, you know what? Let's do I wanted to do let's do a commercial real quick. I know, yeah, we got to do a read. Let's do a read. Let's do a commercial. And when we come back, there's something I want to play from Jim Jordan. It's actually kind of long, but I'm going to clip it, make sure it's not that long so we don't have to waste too much time on it. But he says some things that I think are really important, and it goes to this question of representation. Go ahead, Laura, what's up? You have something to say, honey?
Do not forget my questions, my love.
Oh, I won't. I promise. We're just going to do that clip, and then we're going to roll right into it. All right? All right, but real quick, let's take a real quick break. Have a word from our sponsors, Jam and Bean. Our friends at Jam and Bean, they are Michigan-based. They were, like I always say, there were no politician heroes during COVID. There were people. Average people were the heroes, and the folks at Jam and Bean were one of them. They also happen to be incredibly good at what they do, which is the art of coffee roasting. A lot of coffee companies out there, even some conservative ones. I'm telling you right now, Jam and Bean is where it's at. They've been expanding as well. Look at that gourmet popcorn. You can see it up there. They sent us a whole bunch of new stuff that's available for you now to try, and they are delicious. Butter, rum, caramel corn is up there. Laura, the creamy dill was amazing. The sour cream and chives is always one of my favorite. It was delicious as always, but there's a whole bunch of holiday stuff out there. Apple pie, which was inspired by Laura's suggestion. Amazing. It is absolutely amazing. And if you're into the new freeze-dried candy, they do an incredible job. Laura and I happen to love those old honey. Do you remember the honey candies that, they'll pop a tooth out, but they were delicious. They've been around a long time. They're old, especially if you're from New York. You know what I'm talking about. They have freeze-dried honey candies that it's my favorite freeze-dried candy I've ever tasted. It's that good. And if you sign up for a subscription right now, Jam and Bean, right? Use the promo code TPP40. You'll get 40% off of that new subscription right off the top. And plus, you'll still get the original 10% People's Pundit discount when that subscription renews. So again, it's right there at the bottom, Jam and Bean, JAMN as in Nancy, bean.com. Use the promo code TPP40. Knock 40% off a new subscription. They're fantastic, and their syrup is really good as well. All right, I know everybody pronounces it differently. Send us your feedback. We love to hear it. They got something for everybody, whether you're a K-Cup person or you are a freshly roasted and you like to grind your own beans. That I have Water Brew right here up on my desk, and Penitent Man, which is one of their other signature blends. Delicious. Really just fantastic. Jamandbean.com, promo code TPP40. All right, at checkout. All right. And again, as always, send us your feedback. Here we go. I'm going to play this, Laura, and then we will get to your questions, love. All right. Sound good? Sound like a plan? All right. So Jim Jordan came out today. I haven't had a chance to see what's going on since we've been on. All right. But you're going. Oh, and yeah, I meant to ask Mike about the Georgia stuff, but it's all right. We expected this. We know what it is. The DA can't get the felonies, so they're trying to get everybody to drop down to misdemeanors and try to get them to testify against Donald Trump. What did you expect? Did you expect Jenna Ellis to hold her own? She almost lost her bar license and immediately decided to flip on Trump in order to keep her license to practice law. What the hell did you think was going to happen, right? Let's play Jim Jordan here. He told a story, speaking of North Carolina, Laura, he told a story about having some friends come, and they went out and, did a little traveling, had dinner, and they were talking about the Wright brothers, flying, and he gave this really, I thought it was not inspiration. It was deep. It was a deep opening remark about it. But then he gets into why he wants to get back to business, and just why am I playing this? If you are MAGA, you're probably not going to agree with 100% of what he's saying, but you're going to agree with 90 plus of it. And it goes to this point of representation. All right. Think about Eric Cantor, Paul Ryan, John Boehner, and Kevin McCarthy, who was none of those. He was better than all of those. I don't care what any of the critics say. He was, but he's no Jim Jordan either. And Jim Jordan, why? He's from Bakersfield. It's a conservative area in California, but it's still California. Jim Jordan is from Ohio, the 4th Congressional District. This is the heart of MAGA. Florida is the heart of MAGA. Better remember that, Jimenez. Better remember that, Mario. Anyway, let's listen to it, and I'm going to stop and go here a little bit, but check it out.
They see an open border. They see crime in the streets. They know what it costs to put gas in their car.
Let's go back a second.
They see.
Here we go.
They see an open border.
Ah, crap.
They see crime in their government and about where our nation is headed.
Here we go. Trepidation.
They see an open border. They see crime in the streets.
Oh,
they know what it costs to put gas in their car. They know what it costs to put food on the table. They see a war in Israel, our strongest ally, Israel, and what's happening there, and the help that Israel needs. And they see a government that's been weaponized against we, the people. The very government that's supposed to serve us has been turned on the taxpayers who pay for it.
All right, so there was a really good clip. It started, and what I was trying to get back to, he said, I think Americans are looking to the Republican Party, and they're hungry for leadership, he said. And they're not getting it from the Obama. Well, what the hell's the difference? The Obama-Biden third term. They're not getting it from them. And the only thing in there that some may disagree with is, this urgency with Israel to put them in there. I would, of course, I think we all have varying thoughts on that and opinions. I think most of MAGA's obviously pro-Israel. But no one else, like an Eric Cantor would have talked like that with the IRS scandal targeting with Lois Lerner and stuff like that. It would not have prioritized that the way that Jim Jordan is. Okay. So just continue to listen. Talking about, shifts and dichotomy and the political spectrum, and just listen.
I think the American people are thirsty for change. I think they are hungry for leadership. And frankly, they know that the White House can't provide it. They know the Senate won't lead. And they are looking for House Republicans to step up and lead and make change on these important issues.
That is exactly what the base wants. They wanted the House majority to act like the Democratic majority in the House did. They didn't take the Senate back in 2018. They only took the House. And yet they were able to grind the Trump agenda nearly to a halt, impeach the man twice. Very big difference between a Republican majority. And it wouldn't matter if Pelosi and Schiff had 3 seats, 5 seats, 8 seats, 2 seats. They would all be together and effective.
We got important work to do. Important work to do. We need to help Israel. We need to get the appropriations process moving so that the key elements of our government are funded and funded in the right way, particularly our military.
That's a major problem. Many of the sticking points that you hear people say publicly are totally bogus. They don't want they like the ability to hide behind a broken process. So when there's a bunch of stuff stuffed in an omnibus or stuffed in a continuing resolution that the base doesn't want, the base doesn't like, they can say, well, it's the best we could get. The truth is they're full of crap. They're fakes. Don't let people like Eric Erickson tell you otherwise. They are fakes. They have always been fakes. Republicans are posers. 90% of the caucus are posers. Nobody ever runs on Ukraine first. Nobody ever runs on bending over for the deep state. Nobody ever runs on funding continuing resolutions or faking it with omnibus bills. They run as MAGA. They run as conservative, and then they get there and they lie. And they like the ability to lie. And with somebody like Jim Jordan or any end result that Matt Gaetz was hoping for, that's a problem for them because they took money from people. And those people expect things in return, as a result. And if they go back to regular order, if they go back to single subject spending bills, they're going to have to defend that to you. Why are you stuffing the pockets of big pharma? Why are you doing this for Silicon Valley? Why are you giving to the military-industrial complex? Why are you propping up Ukraine? Why are you willing to send our kids, our sons and daughters overseas to die while their jobs get shipped over to the country next door? They have to defend that. They're going to have to make that case to you. They don't want to go back to single subject spending bills. That's the truth. Matt Gaetz poisoned the well. Shut up, you fat slob. That had nothing to do with it. You're using Matt Gaetz as a scapegoat. I think what he did was reckless too. Was he trying to listen to the voter? Yeah, he was. And I did now countless shows about it. But if you don't have a game plan, you shouldn't take action. He didn't have a game plan. But here we are now. And don't pretend for a second that anything that he did or the threats they're getting, I get death threats almost on a daily basis. And by the way, a lot of them come from the right. That's part of having a public persona. They're talking bad about my wife. They're bringing this up. Don't run for Congress. If you don't want everyone to dig up every skeleton, pull out every skeleton in your closet, if they don't want to look under, if you don't want them to look under every stone, if you can't handle a death threat, I have had radical Muslim groups send me pictures of them stepping on babies' heads when ISIS was around over my defense of Israel. Don't give me that threat and crap.
We need to get back to our committee work. And frankly, we need to continue the oversight work that I think is so darn important. In short, we need to get to work for the American people. We need to do what we said we were going to do. We need to do what we told them we were going to do when they elected us and put us in office. And frankly, we can't do that if the House isn't open. And if we can't open the House until we get a speaker. My favorite scripture verse is 2 Timothy 4:7. Paul's the old guy giving advice to the young guy, Timothy. And he says, fight the good fight, finish the course, keep the faith. And I tell folks, I love that verse because of the action in it. Because of the word. Americans aren't timid folks. They're people of action. And the words in that verse, fight, finish, keep, I think fit the American spirit. Americans expect their government to fight for them. They expect us to finish our work. And they expect us to keep faith with the principles and values that made us the greatest nation ever, made us the nation that could go from the Wright brothers to Neil Armstrong. That's what we have to keep in mind. And that's the kind of attitude I think we got to have. The quickest way to get all this working is to get a speaker elected. That's what I hope we can do today. I'll take your questions.
All right. I don't really care too much about the media's questions, but I will say this. That's why he started that story with the Wright brothers. And then he was saying, that from, the thing barely got off the ground. The truth is, folks, the flight barely got off the ground. It was up in the air for 20 seconds or something like that. And yet in a few short years, on the grand scheme of things, a few short years, but in the grand scheme of things, short while later, Americans were blasting off in rockets and Neil Armstrong was getting on the moon. We're not able to accomplish big things like this anymore. We're paralyzed by cowardice, weakness, and the lack of resolve to be what we are, to be who we are, to be true to what we are. And that's what he was trying to say. All right, so speaking of taking questions, it's my turn to take questions. So the hell with Jim, not Jim Jordan, the hell with the media and their stupid questions to Jim Jordan. The truth is what Jim said is they expect us to do what we were elected to do and what we promised to do is the problem. That I would say about six lawmakers, more probably, but I feel confident saying that. That's the real reason they're holding out. They're holding out not because some fat slobs comment about Matt Gaetz poisoning the well. They're holding out because they have nowhere to hide. And that's what they do best. Hide and act like chameleons. Oh, yeah, I'm conservative. Let me put my little conservative shade on next to everybody else. They're full of crap. They've always been full of crap. And they haven't stopped the march of progressivism. They haven't. Some of them been there for 30, 40 years, Kay Granger. She doesn't want to go back to regular order. That's her job. Her job is to get the House back to regular order, to single subject spending bills. She's too damn corrupt. Look at who's funding this woman. Go through their take a second and go through their finances. Kay Granger has gotten no low dollar donations this cycle. She's relying on nothing but PAC money and special interest funding those PACs, from big pharma to her real kicker, the defense industry. They don't want to explain why that hammer costs $200. They have no interest in doing that. How will rumblings of a draft affect Biden's Gen Z vote share? I've always said that that's a good question. Even if they're just rumblings and they're not true, it could hurt him quite a bit. None of these people want to go off and fight a war, especially not for Joe Biden, especially not for Israel, especially not for Ukraine. They're not fighters. I'm sorry. That's a whole other issue that we really have to contend with. It's been an issue for a long time that like 1% of the country defends the rest. It's a significant problem. And I would say this, I would agree with some of the people that had said, listen, if a draft does come back, enlistment is still a great way to get yourself out of the ghetto. Enlistment is a great way to get yourself out of poverty or a dead-end situation, as long as you realize what you're getting into and you don't hold out any false expectations. But they are not going to be okay with being forced. And if they do send us into a great power conflict, that's probably going to happen because, or at least some move will be. People always say, the draft's not coming back. Folks, if there's a great power conflict, the draft's coming back, especially if it's a two-front great power conflict. Of course it is. We don't have the manpower. But that's why they don't like war in general. And that's why Trump, being the peace candidate and the candidate of peace and prosperity, will certainly increase his vote share with younger voters. And it's happening. What can we tell people that believe we cannot beat the cheat? Wow, chivalrous savage. Thank you so much for asking that question. You have to tell them, first of all, it can be beat. I mean, I don't want to get too convoluted with the math, but when you have X number of, the pool of potential fraudulent behavior is X number in an individual state, the best thing that they are hoping for is that you think you can't beat the cheat and you don't vote, because that's the low-hanging fruit that they're going to use to fortify the election. High participation can overwhelm the cheat. You can't stop the cheat, but you can beat the cheat with high participation, which we're headed for right now. You need overwhelming participation. We've gone over in the last couple of weeks, we've gone over a lot, maybe even a month and a half. We've gone over this concept of how the likely voter model has gotten more democratic, and it used to be that benefited Republicans, and Democrats were the ones who needed to get out low propensity voters. The numbers that favor Trump among adults and non-registered and unlikely are so dramatic. Premise again, it was like 20 points. So how do you do it? You register yourself to vote if you're not registered right now. You register friends who also think they can't beat the cheat, and you get them out. You overwhelm the system. That's how you do it. Should we vote against a Republican House in order to clean house in 24? I look at the House GOP and go, what is the point of it? What is the point? Gillian, I do think that depends on who your House member is, but there are several people in the House that I think it's just worth purging. I do. Now, giving Donald Trump a Democratic House is not going to be good. So right now, I think there needs to be a robust primary season for Republicans if they want representation, which can happen. It's just, I'm going to tell you this right now. The money is not going to be there for some of these candidates. So it's going to have to come from grassroots. There are even some people that I think, when we're going to probably bring this up pretty soon, there are some people on the right who may represent what you think is your wing of the party, who unfortunately are subject to others who don't want more insurgents in the party. So it's a heavy lift, but this is a different world. It's a brave new world. It's just the age of information, and you don't need Fox News to get behind a primary challenger anymore. You don't need that to happen, and we need to get more efficient in ground swelling, for campaigns, challenger campaigns, and I think we can do this. 2022, I think there was too much reliance on the traditional forces to help your campaign succeed, and they failed miserably in a lot of areas because of that. There are just some candidates who should never have gotten rid of their original teams, not for nothing. And full disclosure, that is, how could I put this? Yeah, it may sound like, so I'm saying it because, of course, that happened to me. I win or help people win their primary, and then they want Kevin's money, so they bring in Kevin's team. Well, Kevin's team destroyed their campaigns. That can't happen. You can't sell yourself, your soul, and all of your relationships for $100,000 fundraiser, which isn't even going to win you the election or not. And you're gonna what? Run against the establishment, and the very next day tweet a picture of you with Kevin raising $100,000. Like, you're throwing mixed signals. So right now, I think the first thing would be, it's a good question, Gillian. The first thing would be deal with a primary situation first, if possible. And then at some point, there has to be some kind of midterm plan to allow some of these people to lose and then have, better candidates in their place later. Like, for instance, look at John Duarte and CD13. Did I or did I not tell you guys this guy was going to be a major disappointment? Would you have noticed a difference between John Duarte and Adam Gray? No, you wouldn't have. He wouldn't have made a big deal. He wouldn't have made a big difference in the vote. Kevin ultimately would have gotten the votes. They would have had a Republican speaker. You just wouldn't have had so many votes cheerleading for things that Republican voters don't want. An open border because he wants cheap labor. Ukraine because he wants Kevin money. Go look at his FEC report right now. You're going to see, including from people like Byron Donalds, who I think is a great guy. But you're going to see a couple thousand here, a couple thousand there from other congressmen. Those are IOUs. Those are in exchange for votes on crap. Disgusting. That has to stop. And that's Kevin saying, listen, we need to get him elected. I'm going to advance this for you if you send 2,000 from your campaign over to John Duarte for Congress. Go look at it. You'll see it all over the place right now. Brian Mass, Byron Donalds, Miller Meeks, Mike Kelly. It's all over the place. Go look. Is it possible that the people who say they're pro RFK now show net negative for Trump, but those who will stay through 24 will end up a net positive? I know what you're saying, even though it's a little weird how you asked that. I do know what you're saying. Yes, it is. It's just very risky. But again, I think we're a long way before RFK ending up on a ballot. I do. But that's a really good question. It could be all of this stuff. I don't know why there are people out there apologizing for him. No, that stuff about the Second Amendment is old. Oh, that stuff about reparations for black voters, that's old. What are you talking about? He said he, unlike Biden, supports reparations. That was recent. Fairly recently. It was him trying to get to the left of Joe Biden in a primary. I just don't know. And then he comes out and denies everything because I think intentionally he's trying to take votes from Donald Trump. I think that's the goal here. Over time, that stuff, as it comes up, as Trump hits him on it, that stuff could go away. And all that's left are people who are dissatisfied with Biden, because the more he is hit with the orthodox liberal stuff, the more he'll be seen as a regular Democrat. Right now, he's not. Right? Most Democrats see RFK as a nutcase, somebody who's got a lot more in common with Trump than Joe Biden. And if that can change, it can be left with that. But it's risky. It's very risky. Maybe add to the next poll. Who do you blame for the House's inability to pick a leader? We were thinking about that. That's a good question. Violence and poetry. YouTube, David. Could we see the comeback of a real third party like the Greenback Party of the 19th century? Yes. And I'm telling you, not even a comeback, the emergence of a third party. So if the Republican Party does not get its act together, it doesn't have a constituency anymore. Not like it used to. It doesn't have a real constituency. If Donald Trump ran as an independent, okay, and he got on the ballots, or he started a new party, it was like the America First Party, Donald Trump's going to get 35 to 40% of the vote, and the Republican Party is going to get like 15. And they're going to get creamed. There is where I think we're at a point where what the Republican Party does here and now is going to determine whether or not that's the case. That's a great question. Disregard the questions I'm placing. Oh, that's you and Mike talking. Okay. Can you ask Rich if he has any insights into the North Carolina governor primaries? It's a wrap. I've seen internal polling. Mark Robinson is either just below a majority or slightly over a majority. We've seen this before. I think unless something dramatically changes, that he's probably going to outperform like Ted Budd did. And that's going to be it. I know Trump likes Mark a lot. I'm not sure. Did he come out and endorse him? Did he? I don't know. But I know Trump does like Mark. And I've seen several now internal polls that show, Trump at like almost 60% in North Carolina, Robinson like 55. And then I've seen another one where Mark was at 48 or something and Trump was at 55. So they're just running away with it. The rest of it, though, is wide open. Lieutenant governor, there's huge numbers of undecideds. In the last poll that somebody showed me out of somebody's political operative in Pitt County, it was like 40% undecided in the down ballot races. And they were polling on another issue, in fact. Don't mind if I take a coffee break? Maybe we should show Jim while I take a coffee break. Jim, you want to hold the placeholder for me, Jim? Thanks, buddy. Laura, you. Very funny. What if I was like picking my nose or something, Laura? Come on now.
Well, then that would have been your fault for being unclean.
This true story. What is happening in the Kentucky governor race? Oh, and I think I skipped a couple, but I'll go back. New poll from Cameron's PAC actually just came out that showed Cameron down by 2. We actually did a show on this, 2 weeks ago? You cannot count Daniel Cameron out of this race. The polls in Kentucky since 2014 have been awful. Awful. Out of all of the polls, and there's 30 of them that we analyzed for that episode, since 2014, there were like some 30 polls conducted in the state of Kentucky. And in all but one, which was a poll from Trafalgar Group, all but one, they grossly understated Republican share of the vote. They roughly get the Democratic share right. So if the Democrats ahead, for instance, 49, 43, or actually, let's say 47, 40. Okay, that's a better spread. Like was the case with Matt Bevin when he originally won. He was down like that. You can see that like the Democrat will be somewhere in that neighborhood, 47%. But then the Republican share of the vote is grossly understated by like 12 or 13 points. So I don't know how Cameron's PAC is weighting. It was done by Signal, was it? Or Coefficient, I believe, conducted that poll. And I can see if I can find it right here. I think David Interactive put it out. Hold on. I think so. Libertarian internal polling, by the way, from Mapstead has Trump up over Biden. It's Trump 41, Biden 40, Mapstead 4, West 2. But they had West as a Green Party candidate, so I don't really know why on earth they would even do that, frankly. Here it is. So coefficient has... Oh, I don't want to show anybody my specific... you're not going to see anything specific. Okay. Here we go. So coefficient has Bashir. And again, this is an internal... Well, it's a poll commissioned by the PAC that is pro-Cameron. All right. Austin Horn is the political reporter who got his hand on it for the Herald Leader. And it shows Bashir 47, Cameron 45. So Bashir up by 2. If you look at some of the Democrats, it says key findings with just weeks before the general election, the race continues to tighten. By the way, Laura, I need you to get a hold of our good friend at Decision Desk and make sure they do not F up like they F up on Louisiana. I'm not playing around. I want Kentucky. I'm not playing. You know, I'm a hard-hearted guy, folks, but I know you want Kentucky really bad, more so than Mississippi, even more so than Louisiana. But how much fun would we have had with Louisiana, right? And I know you want Kentucky, and I'm going to make sure that it's like Savage Rich who makes sure we get Kentucky. 2/3 of the remaining undecided voters are Trump supporters, still on the sidelines. Well, that would be expected because it's a Trump plus a million state. So, you know, the Bashir has crossover appeal. The majority of undecided voters are Republicans and self-identified conservatives. While Bashir has maintained a consistent lead, he will struggle to hit 50%, giving his ties to Biden. On a head-to-head ballot, among general election voters, Bashir and Cameron are neck and neck. I do think, I'll be honest with you, I think coefficient is probably closer than some of the ridiculous public polls you have seen. Survey USA was dumped for their failures in Kentucky. And I like them. I think they're nice people. I know one dude at Survey USA is really good friends with Larry Elder. We had great conversations together. He's a really cool chap. But Kentucky's a pain in the butt. All right. I've told Patrick Cahaley, remind me never to poll Kentucky. I just have no interest in doing it. All right. Maybe I would try it, but you know, it would just be up between us, you know, like our community. Bashir's strong ties to Biden negatively resonate with undecided voters, swinging them in Cameron's direction. Yeah, but that's with a push. You know, it's the job of the campaign to make sure that they're pushed. Here we go. Here's the rest of it. President Trump's strong influence could have a significant impact on this race, with 2/3 of undecided voters holding a favorable opinion of the former president. Undecided voters report at a 3-to-1 ratio that Trump endorsement would make them more likely to vote for Daniel Cameron, which is where I'm going with this. This is also a big sample poll. Okay. Why? It uses mobile text responses and landline phones. That is honest. And then they balanced it for age, gender, education, race, and geography of the true voting population. Could end up being a somewhat low turnout like Louisiana. And then, you know, that could get interesting. The higher the turnout, I actually think is better for Cameron. I've said this before. I do. Louisiana was higher than other, you know, specials. It's really not a special. It's a general. It's just an off-cycle general. I'm just saying that I think that, you know, the higher for Daniel Cameron, the better, as long as it's not disproportionately in favor of Democrats, because Bashir will help that. But Bashir is winning Trump supporters. So where I'm going with this is why the lawfare against Donald Trump is just so damn un-American and undemocratic. Donald Trump being in Kentucky for Daniel Cameron the last 2 weeks of this election, a couple of times here, a couple of times there, would probably put Daniel Cameron over the edge. Right? Why? Because Bashir is able to do something that fewer and fewer Southern Democratic governors are able to do. Pretend they're not a part of the National Democratic Party. Pretend that the vote for governor doesn't impact national politics. Gubernatorial elections, the partisan ID is a lot less rigid. There are tons of Bashir Trump voters or Trump Bashir voters. And it is Daniel Cameron's job to convert as many of them as possible. But again, for the same reasons that Ron DeSantis and his team grossly overestimated the significance of him winning that election in 2022, for that very same reason is why Andy Bashir is going to be hard to beat. All right. But again, we're in a different, unique place now. And if Trump was to get down there and say, listen, we need governors everywhere. We need governors everywhere. Governor elections are more about local stuff. So it's interesting. It is. But, Trump's in court and it's hard. Now, that hasn't hurt him in his race, but it has kept him off the campaign trail for allies. And they know what I am telling you, and I've been telling you, and Mike Davis was telling. They know all of what we're saying is true, that Trump is going to need allies. And they're trying to keep him from getting those allies elected. All right. But Mike was dead on about bankrupt him, keep him off the campaign trail. That's their Hail Mary, because he's going to kick their ass. Trump is ahead. You heard Mark Halpern on Newsmax last night with me. Even he said it. Trump is ahead. All right. Both of us were, did you see it, Laura? Both of us were snickering when she picked the Marist poll.
Did I see it?
Yep.
Of course I saw it. I watched you, baby.
Yeah. But both of us, even Mark Halpern and my, along with me, we're snickering because it's like Marist. Marist blows. Everybody knows Marist blows, especially.
All three of you were laughing. Let's be correct.
Yeah, the three of us were. Well, yeah, no. I mean, look, she got what it had the RFK effect in it. That's why she picked it. Yeah, but they blow. Tim Pool had Robert Epstein on today. According to this researcher, it's impossible for Trump to win because of big tech. That's garbage. Apparently, Google can swing between 6 and 25 million votes in 24. They swung upon a bunch in 2020, but there is a saying: "Fool me once, shame on you; fool me twice, shame on me." They're going to have an impact for sure, but that's nonsense to pretend like Google is like the end all be all. Look at everything they did in 2020, and yet the election was still decided by 44,000 votes. That's it. So that's a load of bullshit. Sorry. I think somebody is getting I think somebody is getting the Messiah complex, Laura. Like somebody is getting that complex where like their work matters more than anything else. Yes, it has an impact, and yes, you have to go after it, but it's not going to. It's been, first of all, it's been going on a lot longer than Robert Epstein is even talking about. We had people, and Laura can attest to this, tell you I'm telling you the truth. We had people from Google consumer surveys call me in 2016 because they were ordered to shut down Google consumer surveys in mid-October because their surveys were showing something that the media and university polls were not, which is that Donald Trump was getting ready to beat Hillary Clinton. And they were ordered to shut it down, and they called us like, hold the line, hold the line, hold the line. They've been doing this for a long time. And they can't stop everything. Maui sure got put on the back burner. Any chance for flips in Hawaii? Well, we did already see some shifting in 22. I would expect Donald Trump to do better even again in Honolulu than he did last time, but it's a very, very blue island. Now, third-party candidate gets a huge chunk of the vote because Biden's just so damn unpopular. It could be a funny result. But it's a very Hawaii and New Jersey, only two states that voted more for Barack Obama than they in 12 than they did 08. Now things change, but I don't think we're there. I mean, if you guys want to see what I'm talking about, let me pull up Hawaii in 2020, and just to give you an idea how blue we're talking about. Now you're talking about the Congress and stuff, which is interesting enough, but very, very liberal area. And the gains they made already is a little bit difficult. Here is Hawaii in 2020. All right. And you can see Trump actually did a lot better. He did. I mean, there are different islands. There's Maui. See Maui? How blue that is? There's Honolulu was 36%. It's incredible. Kauai was 35. That was an incredible amount of votes for Donald Trump in Honolulu. I mean, stunning. But Biden, supposedly eked out more in Maui and in the main island. It is possible, that you could see an area like Maui, but Maui is, look, the vote share, right? So why do you think Biden could care less? I'm serious, because as long as they don't get crushed in Honolulu, right? I mean, which is not going to happen. So, but it could get funny. I mean, really, Could it be a 55-45 laugh? Yeah, it sure could. And then what does that mean? It means something, just to give you an idea. House, right? Load this up. I got some time. Oh, not much because I'm going on human events at 2:05. All right. But just to tell everybody.
I was just about to warn you. And then after that, you have a Epic Times. Epoch Times.
Is that live?
I want to say yes. Let me confirm.
All right. Jill Takuda, got 62%. That was not seen as a great performance. All right. So, there was some gains there, but, but we'll see. We'll see. But it is, I mean, look, yeah. Did they abandon them? They sure as hell did. They sure as hell did. But we'll see. That was Mike's question, which I asked. The judge's order makes a great vehicle for an appeal that can get something up before the Supreme Court pretrial. And that's what Saul Wise was saying. That's what Saul's argument, and I think Mike concurred with that, which is that the order, the gag order itself, is so broad. It's so broad. She opened herself up to be overturned. And it's ridiculous. I'm sorry, but it could be expedited to the Supreme Court. There's also I'm telling you the issue. And now Will Scharf, a friend of Inside the Numbers and candidate for Attorney General in this great state of Missouri, Show Me State. He's now, for those who didn't see yesterday, he is now on Trump's legal team. And he has had some very, very impressive legal arguments that Mike and others have commented on. And Mike thinks that's why I asked Mike about that when he was on, because that is, and I've heard from left-wing lawyers are like, damn, because that's a strong argument. It's a really strong argument. There is presidential immunity outside of the privilege and everything. The Supreme Court is going to have to weigh the long-term impact of ruling against Donald Trump on that. And if that happens, if the Supreme Court steps in, then none of these cases, none of them are going to be resolved before the 2024 election. None of them. All right. So that is the big danger for Joe Biden and Jack Smith and Judge Upchuckin nutcase. I just don't know how, even as a Democrat, you could be okay with this. I just don't. It's going to come back to get you. It's going to come back to get you. Logically speaking, how could this election be anywhere close to competitive if young voters are nearly tied? That's the left's best group. If you, and I haven't had a chance, but I suspect that if you go through here, let's look at, that's a good, really good question. Where's age? Older voters have gotten more Democratic. And that's just something that is, that's got to be noted. All right. As far as who's undecided by race, oh God, man, Donald Trump is like significantly. Ooh, where is that? Other total. Donald Trump is just significantly outperforming Republicans on the generic ballot. Like, it's not close. It's not just it's not just that Trump's got a bigger lead. It's his margin. He's at 48. They're at 45. That's so pathetic. Anyway, undecideds. Where are you, undecideds? I'm looking at who is undecided here, because the reason why is because in truth, a lot of undecided African Americans still, and a lot of, but even still, 16%. That's less than the 5% of white voters who are still undecided. So how is it still that close? We're a deeply divided country. We're a deeply divided country. And by the way, I mean, it could blow open, but just as we will never see 20 to 23, 25% of Republicans voting for Joe Biden because Donald Trump is convicted, we will never see 20, 25% of Democrats vote for Donald Trump. We're a very, very, very toxic level divided country. I'm trying to get to age. Here we go. Where is Trump v. Biden with age? Here we go. So they're the most undecided yet. So are the 30 to 39s. They're right behind 18 to 20. Trump leads 50 to 39 with that group, and they're undecided. Then you're talking about it could be a rout. It could. Trump is ahead with 70 or more, but 60 to 70 they're basically tied with the super seniors. I've been telling you the super seniors is getting more Democratic. The 60 to 69 is much more pro-Trump in this poll. In our polling, we do the 54 to 60 or 55 to 64 group, 45 to 64, and then 65 plus, but we break down super seniors. The 45 to 64 is Trump's best group in our polling. It doesn't look that way here. It's a little bit weird, but the most undecided groups with the largest numbers are Trump groups as far as age. Unless the 18 to 20s, 29s swing against them, which let's just say they do. But the 30 to 39s hold that margin. They would essentially not cancel out. It would be a slight net benefit for Trump. And then Trump would have to do better with 60 and above to cancel out Joe Biden's lead with the 40 to 59s that he's got that are undecided roughly right now. I'd have to look and see what their approval rating is of Joe Biden to see what, is the likelihood of the break, the margin when they split, when they finally do decide. Man, I mean, it's just unbelievable. Trump does better with older voters against Bernie. Biden has this weird appeal to some older voters, and some of these Democratic candidates do as well. It's a good question, really good question. But we're divided, really divided. We need someone competent to get out there and recruit some great primary challenges for the Trader 20. Republicans do need that, yes. And believe me, I'm not going to go and stick my nose everywhere, but in my own backyard and in other places I'm familiar with and have friends with, I'm going to wind up giving people a hand on that. And I am thinking about it, because if I do it, you know what they're going to do? Republicans are nasty. They're going to try to smear the hell out of me. They got ammunition to do it. I don't think people care. I just don't think people give a shit. And I have a great success story. I have a great comeback story. And I think people like an underdog, and people like those who can overcome adversity rather than those who get the silver spoon stuck in their mouth. And then, they never really had to deal with much adversity in their life. So it's, there's that part about it. But I like the role I'm playing right now. And if I disappear from this industry, who the hell is going to be the one keeping everybody in check? Who's going to do it? Let's be real for a second. Who's going to lead the trends and tell you Donald Trump is 55, 60% in the primary? That Ron DeSantis is not at 30% anymore? Who's going to tell you that this poll is totally fudged? Or they maybe didn't fudge it, they just did this wrong, right? I mean, who's going to lead the trends? I think we serve a purpose. This community serves a purpose, and I don't want to have to give up my community. I really don't. That's I'll deal with the attacks and I'll beat them back. I think I'd beat them like a drum, to be honest with you. I'm not to sound cocky or anything, but I do. Plus, unlike every other Republican, I'll walk my ass right into a ghetto and ask for their vote. Absolutely, I will. Wearing this, wearing a three-piece. Watch me, and watch me get them. Watch. Why? Because I'm a normal person. Because I lived with normal people. Because I was raised with normal people. Because I speak the language of normal people.
We all bleed red.
That's right. Kennedy at 16% is absurdly high. Absolutely. Absolutely, Benny. Even Yahoo having him at 9 is a lot. That's what we had him at, about 9, and we still thought, that's just because it's so early. I would have expected 15% in a primary to translate into about 5 in a general. Thoughts? It's because it's early, and that is honestly what we actually talked about this on Timcast. Like, really, realistically, we're looking at 5-6% here. I totally agree. Question for Rich: have you seen the coefficient poll in Kentucky? They took jabs at Emerson on Twitter as well. I think Emerson messed up in Kentucky. They messed up in Kentucky in the primary, guys. They did. They understated Cameron's vote by like 20 points or something. It was bad. No, it was like 18, 17. I don't know. Something ridiculous. It was bad. Something like that. Do you think Trump and the MAGA movement had opened the eyes of voters IRT in real time, voting for real policies rather than pipe dreams. I think either have opened their eyes, and everybody, depending on their own experience, is seeing something different. Of course, we're all grouped into certain groups, but I think that, I think for some people, that's certainly true. That, right, because you remember the politicians used to promise everything. It was just totally ridiculous, right? And you knew it was never going to happen, but you wanted to believe them. It was just total BS. Could the current speaker's battle substantially increase competitive primary challenges? Yes, Wong. Yes. And honestly, that's one silver lining I was telling Sean Parnell about, if nothing else, that this has opened the door for primary challengers the way that they're just, but the doors weren't opening. There were bad votes, but there was nothing really serious to unmask these lying pieces of you-know-what. On the topic of Duarte, I tried looking up the EPA violations Rich just mentioned, and it looked like it was just that he deposited Tilda's pistachio farm and ran afoul of the Obama expansion of the Waters Act, which was nuts. It's more than that. It's just that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Army Corps of Engineers handled most of it, not the EPA. Right? It didn't sound like a water source pollution. It did. It was. I'll show you. I do have more info on it, and it's not my job to drop opposition research, but I'm the only person who ever requested a FOIA on that, and I have tons of stuff. It was water pollution in the sense that even when he tried to hide it and fill it in, he didn't deposit the correct stuff back in. Like, you can't just mix different kinds of earths. And while I know it may sound dumb, but the freshwater shrimp population, it was disturbed or killed by that. And he was told not to do it. I mean, you'll clearly see in the paperwork. God, you know what, Laura? Maybe we need a Dropbox or something. We'll put together, because it's so much. There's photos, there's documents, and I'll be honest. Trump repealed that act, but he didn't interfere. Or you repealed that rule, but he didn't interfere with the Duarte issue, which John got pissed about because it was hard to defend. They were told not to do it. He did it anyway. And yeah, it was some like Army Corps of Engineers employee, no joke, just rolling down the road one day, and he knew, because he's familiar, it's his area of responsibility, and he knew the land, and he's looking as he's driving, and he's like, what the hell? And he stopped and, was like, oh, with the machines, oh, what are you doing here? You didn't have a permit. You didn't get approved for this. And they were denied. When he went back and checked, he found that he was, in fact, denied, and they just went forward anyway. So he did what a government bureaucrat would do in that situation, get a stick up his ass, and he was pissed. And he decided to get, he decided to, how can I put it? He decided to pick, he had a bone. He got a bone. You got a what for him, right? But yeah, we need a Dropbox because it's huge, and there's a lot people don't know. In the court cases, you don't have the stuff to, because you would have to file a FOIA request with the Army Corps of Engineers, and then you'll get the court docs and everything. The court stuff is real bad. And by the way, the only other one who's got that, I believe, is Adam Gray. I don't know why I didn't hit him with it, but he didn't. I think he thought he was just going to beat him anyway. On the O'Shea race, people on Breitbart were biatching about Granger, but no one mentioned who was running against her. The level of boomer GOP ignorance is off the charts. Absolutely. And John's got a lot he's got to do to get the word out. Right now he's with CPAC. So, I mean, they're moving in the right direction, but I'd like to see John's burn rate come down. I'd like to see the people that John has supported in the past reciprocate and support him. And I'm going to hold my tongue right now. But if I get word today of something that I don't like, you're going to hear about it. Believe me. Why isn't Trump going to these inner city areas that are revolting over migrant issues and talking specifically about that issue? GA, way to GBL. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. GA, way to go. Right. Way to go after the black vote is what you mean. He will, Tony. He will. Right now he's running a Republican primary. I would like to see him do more, but when you're in court, and this is what's going to happen with him, when you're in court, as much as Donald Trump's in court, which I think he is again today, you have to pick and choose where you're going to go, and it's still primary. I know for a fact they're going to go to urban areas. Voters Kentucky voters that gullible? Local issues are different. It's not that they're gullible. It's just not everyone is as partisan as those of us who are in this game. We don't know as much. I mean, they don't know as much about the connections that we do if we're in this game. So it's not that they're gullible. It's just you really do have to put it in their face. They're busy. They're really busy, and they don't look at gubernatorial elections the same way that they'll look at like a Senate or a presidential election. They don't. I'll take this cue to thank People's Pundit and Laura for their time and transparency, granting us this information, insight, and effort on a tri-weekly basis. Thank you, Chivalrous Savage. I appreciate that. And that's honestly why I would have just jumped in already. I really, not that I ever wanted it. I just feel like I think I would, like, me and John could really raise some hell, couldn't we? Right? Laura, right? John and I, could really go there and make some real problems for them.
Oh, yes.
Because go ahead.
No. After you, darling.
Oh, I'm just saying it would be a thing of beauty. It really would. I don't need them. I don't need them. Like, I would self-fund.
Care about their opinion on anything that is relevant, because they're all irrelevant.
Like, I could self-fund and I could crowdfund. And with low dollar donations and my own money, I could. It's a Trump plus 32 district. All I have to do is win the primary.
And a wife that supports you but doesn't have any aspirations to being in the White House.
And she does support me greatly. I'd be either in jail or dead if it wasn't for Laura. And I can say that out loud. I did not handle civilian life after the military well at all. And I had a hard time. Listen, guys out there, you're going to know where I'm coming from. If you're an alpha guy who's able to do alpha things, and then you find yourself like literally overnight being told you can't do these things, and it's going to be years and years before you can do them again, it's not easy to deal with. And it sucks. And if it wasn't for Laura, I'm telling you, I would be, I don't know.
Not to mention your fun times when you don't listen to your wife when she says, I think you're allergic to that.
Oh, that's just stupid stuff. I'm talking about like my own destructive behavior for a period of time. Yeah. My own destructive, like self-destructive behavior for a period of time. Like the words, I'm pregnant, were the beginning of everything. No, because seriously, as a man, you have two choices. You either be a father and be a good father, or you're a piece of crap, in my opinion. Like this is why I understand people's problems and everything, but I have no sympathy for deadbeats. Anyway, we got Jack coming up at 2:05, so I guess I got a boogie. Are you confident we can win all those districts we gave up in 2022? Not all of them. I'm not confident at all, especially after all this nonsense. I'm not at all. But that's unfortunate. It can change, though. A year is a long way away.
We're calling you.
All right, don't forget to sign up to the Public Polling Project. Contribute far and wide, share far and wide, and sign up to the locals page. peoplespundit.locals.com. See you on Sunday, folks. Book club.
Deuces.
Book club. Deuces. Book club.